They say you see your life flash before your eyes when you die. But as Elara Voss lay bleeding in the mud, abandoned in the cursed borderlands between kingdoms, all she saw was darkness. And all she felt was rage. The arrow in her side had stopped bleeding an hour ago. That wasn't a good sign. Elara pressed her torn cloak against the wound, but her fingers had gone numb. The winter rain fell in sheets, turning the forest floor into a freezing swamp that soaked through her prison rags. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. 2 years. 2 years she'd survived the dungeons of the Wolf Kingdom, the torture, the interrogations, the endless dark. 2 years of clinging to the promise that her people, the Crescent Empire, would negotiate for the prisoner's release. Then the treaty came. She'd heard the guards celebrating. Peace at last. The border wars were over. Prisoners would be exchanged. Except they weren't. The Empire had signed away the war prisoners as part of the agreement, a concession to the Wolf King's demands. Acceptable losses, the document called them. 300 men and women forgotten. Erased from the records. No longer citizens. No longer human. When the dungeon riot erupted 3 days ago, started by desperate prisoners who'd realized they'd been abandoned, Elara had seen her chance. She'd fought her way out with nothing but a stolen knife and the bitter fuel of betrayal. She'd made it 40 miles before the hunters found her. Not soldiers. Not guards. Wolves. The rogues had chased her for sport, howling through the trees like demons. She'd managed to kill one with her knife, a desperate, ugly thing involving a tree branch and luck, before an arrow took her in the side. She'd crawled into this cave because she had nowhere else to go. The human cities wouldn't take her. A war prisoner, branded a traitor by association, infected by 2 years in wolf territory? They'd execute her on sight for contamination. The wolf lands wanted her dead for escaping. And her family? Her noble family had sent one letter to the dungeons. 1. You have shamed the Voss name. Do not expect rescue. You are dead to us. So here she was. Actually dying. Alone. At least it's on my terms, she whispered to the darkness, her voice cracked and bitter. At least I chose this. She closed her eyes. The sound of footsteps made them snap open. Heavy. Purposeful. Not the chaotic scramble of rogues, but the measured stride of someone, confident. Elara's hand fumbled for her knife, but it was gone, lost somewhere in the mud outside. She pressed herself against the cave wall, her breath coming in short gasps, pain flaring white-hot through her side. A shadow filled the cave entrance. Then he stepped into view, and Elara's dying heart stuttered. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet of pure muscle wrapped in dark leathers and a wolf pelt cloak that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. His face was all sharp angles and brutal beauty, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, eyes that glowed molten gold in the darkness. A wolf. But not just any wolf. The crown braided into his dark hair, the ceremonial marks on his armor, the sheer presence that made the air feel heavier. Wolf King, Elara breathed, and hated how weak she sounded. Kael Ashborne stared down at her, his expression unreadable. She waited for the killing blow. Waited for him to call his guards. Waited for him to laugh at the pathetic human bleeding out in a cave. Instead, he knelt. His golden eyes scanned her body, landing on the arrow wound, the bruises, the signs of torture that still marked her skin. Something flickered across his face, anger? Recognition? The rogues did this? His voice was deep, resonant, with an edge that made her instincts scream dangerous. Does it matter? Elara's laugh turned into a cough that brought blood to her lips. I'm dying anyway. You escaped Blackstone prison. Barely. You killed one of the rogues. He was slow. Kael's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle. Your Crescent nobility. I remember you from the treaty negotiations. You translated the documents. Elara blinked. He remembered her? 2 years ago, She'd been part of the Empire's diplomatic envoy, brought along for her skill with languages and maps. She'd seen the Wolf King from across the negotiation table, cold, imperious, terrifying. A figure of nightmares. That was a lifetime ago, she said. Your people left you to rot. I noticed. Something dark passed through his eyes. He reached for her, and Elara flinched, but his touch was careful as he examined the arrow wound. This is poisoned, he said quietly. You have hours at most. Then go. I don't need an audience. Is that what you want? To die here? Alone. I want, her voice broke. I want to have mattered. I want someone to remember I existed. I want. She couldn't finish. The tears came hot and furious, and she hated them. Hated her weakness. Hated that after everything, the torture, the abandonment, the hunt, it was kindness in a stranger's eyes that finally broke her. Kael was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. You won't die here, he said, and before she could protest, he lifted her into his arms with impossible gentleness. I won't allow it. Why? Elara gasped as pain lanced through her. Why would you save me? He looked down at her, and for just a moment, she saw past the crown, past the king, to the man beneath, someone who understood loneliness. Someone who knew what it meant to be trapped by duty and expectation. Because, Kael said softly, I know what it's like to be left behind. The world tilted. Elara's vision swam. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the distant howl of wolves answering their king's call. 3 days later, Elara woke to warmth. Not the cold, damp misery of the cave. Not the frozen stone of dungeon cells. Warmth. The kind that sank into your bones and made you remember what it felt like to be alive. She blinked, disoriented. She was in a bed, a real bed with furs and soft linens. A fireplace crackled across the room. Morning light streamed through tall windows. And sitting in a chair beside her bed, watching her with those unsettling golden eyes, was the Wolf King. You're awake, he said. Elara bolted upright and immediately regretted it as her side screamed in protest. She looked down to find clean bandages wrapped around her torso, her skin scrubbed free of blood and grime. What did you do to me? She demanded. I saved your life. Why? Because you deserve to live. She stared at him, searching for the lie, the trap, the ulterior motive. But his expression was frustratingly sincere. Where am I? My private hunting lodge. 30 miles from the capital. No one knows you're here. Your court doesn't need to know everything I do. Elara's mind raced. This didn't make sense. Kings didn't risk themselves for dying prisoners. They didn't hide refugees in secret lodges. Unless you want information, she said flatly. About the Empire. About the treaty. Kael stood, moving to the window. I want nothing from you. Everyone wants something. He turned, and the look he gave her was so raw it stole her breath. I want, he said quietly, for one person in this God's-forsaken world to survive something that should have killed them. Is that so hard to believe? Yes. Yes, it was. But the exhaustion in his voice, the weight in his shoulders, she recognized it. The burden of being strong when you wanted to break. The loneliness of wearing a crown. 3 days, Kael continued. You've been unconscious for 3 days while the healers worked. The poison is purged. Your wounds are closing. You'll live. And then what? Then I arrange safe passage to neutral territory. Give you coin, supplies, a new identity. You disappear. You start over. Just like that. Just like that. It was too good to be true. It had to be. But Elara was too tired to fight anymore. Thank you, she whispered. Kael nodded and moved toward the door. Wait, Elara called. Why are you really here? In the middle of nowhere, hunting rogues yourself instead of sending soldiers. He paused, his hand on the doorframe. Because sometimes, he said without turning around, a king needs to remember he's also a man. The 3 days that followed were the strangest of Elara's life. Kael came every morning and evening, checking on her recovery. They didn't talk much at first. He'd bring food, ask about her pain levels, adjust the fire. But slowly, carefully, they began to speak. She told him about her life before the war. About growing up the fourth daughter of a minor noble house, overlooked and underestimated. About discovering she had a gift for languages and cartography, skills that made her useful enough to join the diplomatic corps. He told her about the weight of a crown inherited too young. About a council that questioned his every decision. About the impossible balance between mercy and strength that kingship demanded. They wanted me to execute all the prisoners, Kael admitted one evening as they sat by the fire. After the treaty. A clean break. Elara's blood went cold. Why didn't you? Because that's what my father would have done. And I swore I'd never become him. So you let us rot in dungeons instead? His jaw tightened. I tried to negotiate your release. Your empire refused. They said you were traitors who'd fed information to the enemy. Lies, I assume, but it was easier to abandon us than admit they'd failed to protect their own people, Elara finished bitterly. Yes. They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. I'm sorry, Kael said finally. For what you endured. For what I couldn't prevent. Elara looked at him, really looked. Saw the genuine regret in his eyes, the guilt he carried. You saved me, she said softly. That's more than anyone else did. Something shifted between them in that moment. A connection neither of them expected. Neither of them wanted. But it was there, undeniable as gravity. On the third evening, as Kael prepared to leave, Elara caught his hand. Stay, she said. Just stay. Please. He should have refused. Should have maintained the distance between king and refugee. Instead, he pulled a chair close to her bed and stayed until she fell asleep. And when she woke in the middle of the night from a nightmare, gasping and clawing at phantom chains, he was still there, talking her down in that low, steady voice until her breathing calmed. You're safe, he murmured. You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you. Elara believed him. That was her first mistake. On the fourth morning, everything changed. Elara woke to raised voices outside. Kael's voice, sharp with authority. Another voice, female, commanding. Cannot simply disappear for days, Your Majesty. The council is furious. Lady Seraphine is asking questions. And there are reports of a human refugee. Kael's response was too quiet to hear. When he entered the room moments later, his expression was carefully blank. My guards found us, he said. We're out of time. Elara's heart sank. They know I'm here? My spy master does. Rain can be trusted, but... He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I can't hide you here anymore. The court will demand answers. Then I'll leave. Like you said, new identity, neutral territory. Elara. The way he said her name stopped her cold. There's something I need to tell you. Something I didn't understand until last night. He sat on the edge of her bed, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. What? She asked. Do you know what a mate bond is? Her blood turned to ice. The wolf legends? The soul binding. It's not a legend. His voice was rough. It's real. And rare. Most wolves never experience it. But when it happens... He met her eyes. When you touched me in that cave, when I decided to save you, something activated. I felt it. I ignored it because it seemed impossible. Humans don't trigger mate bonds. They can't. Kael, what are you saying? I'm saying that every instinct I have is screaming at me to keep you close. To protect you. He broke off, jaw clenched. To claim you as mine. And that's not fair to you. You didn't choose this. I won't trap you. Elara's mind spun. Mate bonds. Soul binding. The stuff of fairy tales and nightmares. So, what do we do? I let you go, Kael said, and the pain in his voice was palpable. You deserve freedom. I won't take that from you. And if I don't want to go? The hope that flashed across his face, bright and desperate, nearly broke her. Elara. I'm not saying I understand this, she said quickly. I'm not saying I'm ready for whatever this is. But these 3 days? You made me feel human again. You made me remember I'm more than what they tried to break me into. So maybe we don't have to decide everything right now. If you stay, people will talk. They'll make assumptions. Lady Seraphine, my betrothed. Your betrothed. Arranged, he said bitterly. For political alliance. I've delayed the marriage for 2 years. I don't love her. I barely know her. This was too complicated. Too messy. Elara should walk away. Take the coin, the new identity, the chance to start over. But when she looked at Kael, this king who'd saved her for no reason, who'd sat with her through nightmares, who looked at her like she was precious. She couldn't. Give me a horse and a week's head start, she said. I'll disappear properly. But Kael, thank you. For everything. He nodded, jaw tight with unsaid words. That afternoon, Rain, a sharp-eyed female wolf with silver hair, brought Elara traveling clothes, a pouch of gold, and identity papers. The king is making a mistake, Rain said bluntly. He should keep you. He's giving me freedom. Freedom's overrated when you're dying inside. Elara didn't respond. That evening, Kael escorted her to the forest edge himself. He'd given her the fastest horse from his stables, supplies for weeks, maps to 3 neutral cities. If you need anything, he said, handing her a sealed letter. This will get you an audience with my sister. She rules the coastal territories. She'll help you. Kael. Be safe, Elara. Be happy. Live the life you deserve. He turned to leave. Elara didn't know what made her do it, the bond, maybe, or just her own battered heart, but she grabbed his arm and pulled him down into a kiss. It was desperate and gentle and over too quickly. Thank you, she whispered against his lips, for seeing me. Then she mounted the horse and rode away without looking back. If she had, she would have seen the Wolf King standing alone in the darkness, his hand pressed to his mouth, his eyes glowing gold with unshed grief. 8 weeks later, Elara collapsed in the market square of Grey Hollow, a border town known for asking no questions. The world tilted. Voices swam around her. Someone caught her before she hit the cobblestones. Get the physician, a woman's voice shouted. Hurry! Darkness claimed her. When she woke, she was in a small room above an apothecary. An elderly woman with kind eyes sat beside her bed. Easy, child, the woman physician Marta said. You've had quite the shock. What happened? That's what I'd like to know. Marta's expression was grave. When did you last bleed? Elara's stomach dropped. I don't. You're pregnant. About 8 weeks, I'd estimate. No, that was impossible. She and Kael had never, they'd barely even touched. But the mate bond, a traitorous voice whispered. Mate bonds don't work like human reproduction. They're magic. Soul binding. That's not possible, Elara said aloud. I assure you it is. But there's more. Marta hesitated. The child's heartbeat. It's unusual. Faster than human. Almost like what? Like a wolf's. The room spun. Elara pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling nothing yet, but knowing with terrible certainty that Marta was right. She was pregnant with the Wolf King's child. A child conceived not through physical union, but through the mate bond that had activated in that cave. A child that was killing her. Because that night, when Elara looked in the mirror, she saw the first golden fleck appear in her left eye. The transformation had begun. What will Elara do now that she's carrying the impossible? Will she run, or will she return to the one man who can save her, the king who let her go? Subscribe to Emmy Romance Collections and drop a red heart if you're already hooked. Elara had survived torture, betrayal, and abandonment. But nothing had prepared her for the horror of watching her own body become something other. The golden fleck in her eye spread over the next 3 days. By day 4, her left iris was half gold, half human brown, a grotesque marble that made children stare and adults whisper. By day 7, both eyes were fully transformed. Elara stopped looking in mirrors. Physician Marta had tried to help. She'd consulted every medical text, every folklore tome, every healer within 100 miles. The diagnosis was always the same: impossible. Humans don't carry wolf children, an elderly healer had said, backing away from Elara like she was diseased. It's against nature. The pregnancy will kill you within weeks. Then remove it, Elara had said desperately. I can't. The child is integrated. Its magic is tangled with yours. Attempting removal would kill you both instantly. So Elara was trapped. Dying. Transforming into something that shouldn't exist. And completely, utterly alone. She'd rented a room in the seediest part of Grey Hollow using the last of Kael's gold. The kind of place where no one asked questions and everyone minded their business. She told the landlord she was a widow. He didn't care enough to question it. Most days, she barely left the room. The transformations were unpredictable. Sometimes she'd blink and find herself crouched on the floor, having torn apart the raw meat she'd bought for dinner with her bare hands. Sometimes she'd wake from nightmares to find claw marks gouged into the wooden walls, claw marks she'd made, though she had no memory of it. Her senses were sharpening. She could hear conversations 3 rooms away. Smell the baker's bread from 2 streets over. Track the movement of rats in the walls with predatory precision. She was becoming a wolf. But not completely. The transformation was wrong, broken. Her human side and the wolf nature were at war inside her body, and she was the battlefield. On day 12, Elara woke to blood on her sheets. Terror seized her. Was she losing the baby? But no, the bleeding stopped quickly. The child's heartbeat remained strong. Marta examined her and found the source. Her fingernails were falling out, making way for something harder. Sharper. You're developing claws, Marta said quietly. Elara stared at her hands in horror. How long do I have? She asked. I don't know. The transformation should kill you. Your human organs can't sustain this. But somehow, you're adapting. It's like the child is changing you. Remaking you into something that can carry it. Into what? Marta had no answer. On day 15, Elara made a decision. She couldn't do this alone anymore. She needed answers. She needed help. She needed Kael. The thought of facing him, of telling him what had happened, made her want to vomit. How do you tell someone they've accidentally created a monster? That their moment of mercy has resulted in an abomination? But what choice did she have? She spent the day writing a letter. Burned it. Wrote another. Burned that too. Finally, she settled on simple truth. Kael. I'm alive. I'm in Grey Hollow. I need your help. Please come. She paid a messenger 3 times the normal rate to deliver it to the Wolf King's palace with absolute secrecy. Then she waited. He didn't come. 3 days passed. Then 5. Then a week. Elara's hope curdled into bitterness. Of course he didn't come. He was a king. She was a complication he'd already dealt with. Why would he risk everything for a woman he'd known for 3 days? The mate bond, her traitorous heart whispered. He felt it too. He wouldn't abandon you. But the evidence suggested otherwise. On day 23, a month and a half since she'd left the hunting lodge, everything went to hell. Elara was in the market, attempting to buy bread with her last coins, when the whispers started. Look at her eyes. Is she sick? My daughter said she saw the woman kill a dog with her bare hands. Not human. Demon-touched. Elara kept her head down and walked faster. A hand grabbed her arm. She spun, instinct taking over, and snarled, an inhuman sound that came from somewhere deep in her chest. The man stumbled back, terrified. The crowd went silent. Then someone screamed, "Monster!" Elara ran. She'd made it 3 blocks when the first stone hit her shoulder. Then another caught her temple, sending her sprawling. The mob descended. Kicks. Fists. Screaming. Elara curled into a ball, trying to protect her stomach, trying to survive. Then something inside her snapped. The wolf took over. Elara blacked out. When she came to, she was crouched in an alley, breathing hard. Her hands were covered in blood, some hers, some not. The mob was gone, fled in terror. And standing at the alley's entrance, watching her with horror and pity, was Physician Marta. "Come," the old woman said quietly, "before the guards arrive." Back in Marta's apartment, Elara washed the blood from her hands and tried not to think about what she'd done. "Did I kill anyone?" she asked finally. "No, but you injured several. They'll recover." Marta poured her tea with shaking hands. "Elara, this can't continue. You're not safe here. The town council is calling for your arrest. The Iron Covenant has been notified." Elara's blood went cold. The Iron Covenant, human extremists who hunted anything supernatural. If they caught her. "I have nowhere to go," she whispered. "Yes, you do." Marta pulled out a sealed envelope. "This arrived yesterday. I didn't give it to you because I was afraid it was another debt collector or," she stopped. "Just read it." Elara's hands trembled as she broke the seal. The handwriting was bold, masculine, familiar. "Elara, I'm coming. Hold on. 3 days." The date on the letter was from a week ago. He'd sent it before he received her message. Which meant, "He's been looking for you," Marta said softly. "The Wolf King. There have been wolves passing through town for weeks, asking questions. I thought they were hunting someone. I didn't realize they were searching." Elara pressed the letter to her chest, emotions warring inside her. Relief. Anger. Hope. Fear. He was coming. But would he still want her when he saw what she'd become? Kael arrived on the 3rd day, just as promised. Elara was in her rented room when she heard the commotion outside, wolves howling, people screaming, the thunder of hooves. She looked out the window and saw him, mounted on a massive black horse, surrounded by a dozen wolf warriors, every inch the terrifying king she remembered. He dismounted and strode into the building like he owned it. Elara barely had time to stand before her door burst open. Kael stopped in the doorway, his golden eyes scanning her from head to toe, cataloging every change, every sign of transformation. She waited for disgust, for rejection. Instead, he crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "You're alive," he breathed into her hair. "Gods, Elara, I thought, when you disappeared. I sent you away," she reminded him. "I know. I tried to respect that. But then I felt," he pulled back, studying her face. His thumb brushed her cheek. "The bond. It's gotten stronger. I could feel you across the distance. Feel your pain. Your fear. I couldn't just leave you to suffer alone." "Kael." Elara's voice broke. "There's something I need to tell you." "I know." She blinked. "You know about the pregnancy?" "Yes. I figured it out 2 weeks after you left. The mate bond, it told me. I felt the moment the child's heart began to beat." His expression turned fierce. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know how. I didn't even understand what was happening until you started transforming." He cupped her face, studying her golden eyes. "You're becoming a hybrid. Half human, half wolf." "I'm becoming a monster." "No." His voice was firm. "You're becoming something new. Something extraordinary." "I'm dying, Kael. My body can't handle this." The physician said. "The physicians are wrong." He took her hands in his. "The bond is trying to stabilize you. But it can't complete the process without me. We need to be together. Properly bonded." "What does that mean?" "It means I take you home. To my kingdom. To healers who understand wolf magic. And we complete the mate bond ritual before the transformation kills you." "Home." The word sent longing and terror through her in equal measure. "Your court will never accept me. A human. A former prisoner. Pregnant with." "They'll accept you because you're mine," Kael said with absolute certainty. "And anyone who challenges that will answer to me." It was madness. Political suicide. Everything he'd worked for, thrown away for. "Why?" Elara asked desperately. "Why risk everything for me?" Kael's expression softened. Because in 3 days, you showed me more humanity than I found in a lifetime of ruling. Because you're brave and brilliant and you deserved better than the hand fate dealt you. Because he hesitated, vulnerable in a way kings rarely are. Because when I let you go, I felt like I was cutting out my own heart. And I won't make that mistake again. Tears spilled down Elara's cheeks. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. But we'll face it together. He pressed his forehead to hers. Come home with me. Let me protect you. Let me. A crash downstairs cut him off. Shouting. Steel against steel. Then a voice, cold and commanding. In the name of the Iron Covenant, surrender the abomination. Kael's eyes flashed pure gold. Stay behind me. He moved to the door, but Elara grabbed his arm. There are too many. If they see you defending me, it'll start a war. Let it. Kael. I said stay behind me. The door exploded inward. 6 Covenant soldiers poured in, weapons drawn. Their leader, a woman with cold eyes and silver armor, pointed her sword at Elara. The creature is coming with us. Over my dead body, Kael said calmly. That can be arranged, Wolf King. This doesn't concern you. She's under my protection. That makes it very much my concern. She's an abomination. Human and wolf mixed, it's against the natural order. We'll purge the demon seed from her and... Kael moved. One moment he was standing still. The next, he'd transformed, his body exploding into a massive black wolf that dwarfed the soldiers. His snarl shook the room. The soldiers faltered. I'm not an abomination, she said clearly. I'm carrying the Wolf King's heir. And if you harm me, you start a war you cannot win. So he stayed, sitting beside her bed as she finally let exhaustion claim her. The last thing she heard before sleep took her was his quiet promise. I've got you. Nothing will hurt you here. I swear it. She woke to screaming. Elara bolted upright, disoriented. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from her. Pain lanced through her stomach, sharp, agonizing. She doubled over, gasping. The door burst open. Kael was there instantly, along with Rain and 3 healers. What's happening? Kael demanded. The lead healer, an ancient woman named Seraphina, examined Elara with quick, practiced hands. The child is growing too fast, she said grimly. Her body can't keep up. If we don't complete the bonding ritual within the next 2 days, we'll lose them both. Then we do it now. She's not ready. The ritual requires her to be in perfect physical condition, or it will kill her. So what do we do? Elara gasped through the pain. Seraphina met her eyes. We stabilize you as much as possible. By time. And pray to the moon that you're strong enough to survive what comes next. The clock is ticking. The court is divided. And Elara's transformation is accelerating. Can Kael save his mate before she's torn apart by the very magic trying to keep her alive? The next morning, Elara met her true enemy. Her name was Lady Seraphine Ashcroft, and she was perfect. Tall, elegant, with silver blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice. She swept into Elara's room without knocking, flanked by 3 handmaidens, and surveyed Elara with the kind of disdain usually reserved for insects. So, Seraphine said coolly, you're the human. Elara, still weak from last night's episode, forced herself to sit up straighter. And you're the betrothed. Was betrothed. Kael seems to have forgotten himself. Her smile was sharp. Temporarily, I'm sure. What do you want? Seraphine moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only Elara could hear. I want you to understand something, little human. Kael may be infatuated now, but kings don't marry prisoners. They don't bond with humans. And they certainly don't produce heirs with creatures who are half-monster. I didn't ask for this. I don't care what you asked for. You're a liability. A scandal. And when the council forces Kael to choose between you and his throne, he'll choose the throne. They always do. She straightened. Enjoy your brief moment of relevance. She swept out, leaving Elara shaking with rage and fear. Because deep down, Elara feared Seraphine was right. The council meeting was that afternoon. Kael hadn't wanted Elara to attend, but she'd insisted. If they're going to decide my fate, I deserve to be in the room. So there she stood, in the massive council chamber, surrounded by dozens of wolf nobles who looked at her like she was vermin. Kael sat at the head of the table, every inch the king. But Elara could see the tension in his shoulders, the careful control. This council is called to address the matter of the king's situation, announced Lord Theron, Kael's uncle, a silver-haired wolf with calculating eyes. Your Majesty, you've brought a human into the palace, claimed her as mate, and announced she carries your heir. This is unprecedented. It's more than unprecedented, snapped Lady Morgana, a wolf noble with braids and battle scars. It's an insult to every wolf-born woman who's waited for the honor of bearing the royal heir. You shame us all. Murmurs of agreement. Kael's voice cut through them like a blade. Elara is my mate. The bond chose her. I didn't. Bonds can be broken, Theron said smoothly. Especially incomplete bonds. You haven't performed the ritual. The connection can still be severed. I won't do that. Then you leave us no choice. Theron stood, addressing the room. I call for a vote of no confidence. If the king refuses to put the kingdom's needs above his personal desires, he is unfit to rule. The room exploded. Half the nobles shouted support. Half shouted outrage. Elara stood frozen, watching Kael's world tear itself apart because of her. Enough. Kael's command was reinforced with alpha power that made every wolf in the room bow their heads involuntarily. I am your king. I have led you through war and peace. I have bled for this kingdom. And I will not be dictated to by a council more concerned with tradition than honor. Then prove it, Seraphine said, standing gracefully. Complete the bond. Show us this human is truly your mate. If the moon accepts her, we'll accept her. But if she fails the ritual. She won't, Kael said. But if she does, Seraphine pressed, you will renounce her and honor your betrothal to me. Those are the terms. Take them or face civil war. The silence was deafening. Kael looked at Elara, and she saw the impossible choice in his eyes. Risk her life in the ritual now, before she's ready, or lose his throne and protect her. Elara made the decision for him. I accept, she said clearly. Elara, no. I accept, she repeated, meeting Seraphine's cold gaze. When? 2 days from now. The night of the full moon. Seraphine's smile was predatory. That should give you time to prepare. Back in her rooms, Kael paced like a caged animal. You shouldn't have agreed. You're not strong enough. I didn't have a choice, Elara said tiredly. It was this, or watch your kingdom tear itself apart. I would have managed. No, you wouldn't have. She caught his hand, forcing him to look at her. Kael, I can feel the bond too. I know what it's costing you to be torn between duty and whatever this is between us. Let me do this. Let me try. If you die, then at least I died trying to matter. To be more than just a victim. He pulled her close, his voice rough. You already matter. You matter more than anything. They stayed like that, holding each other until Rain knocked on the door. Your Majesty, the healers are here to prepare Lady Elara for the ritual. The preparation was brutal. For 2 days, healers subjected Elara to every test, every examination, every painful procedure designed to strengthen her body for what was coming. The bonding ritual isn't like human marriage, Seraphina the healer explained as she applied a paste to Elara's skin that burned like fire. It's a merging of souls. The moon herself will judge whether you're worthy. If she finds you lacking, I'll die. I know. More than die. Your soul will be consumed by the bond. You'll cease to exist entirely. Elara tried not to think about it. Rain visited daily, teaching her about wolf customs, politics, what to expect. The court will be watching, Rain said, looking for any sign of weakness. You need to be strong, confident. Show them you're worthy of being queen. I'm not, though. I'm just a translator who got lucky. You're a survivor. That's more than most nobles can claim. Rain's expression softened. For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. Kael's been alone for too long. He needed someone to remind him he's more than a crown. Will they really accept me? If I survive? Some will. Some won't. But if you survive, it means the moon herself approved. That's not something even the council can deny. The night before the ritual, Elara couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony, staring out at the full moon rising over the mountains, and tried to make peace with her mortality. She heard him before she saw him, the quiet footsteps, the familiar scent. You should be resting, Kael said, joining her at the railing. Can't. Too busy panicking. He didn't smile. It's not too late to refuse. We can leave tonight. Find another way. There is no other way. You know that. I won't lose you. You might not have a choice. He turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with desperate gentleness. Listen to me. When you're in the ritual, when it feels like you're being torn apart, you hold on to me. You hear my voice. You follow it back. Don't you dare let go. Kael. Promise me. I promise. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of everything they hadn't had time to say. When they pulled apart, both were trembling. Whatever happens tomorrow, Kael murmured, know that these weeks with you have been the only time I've felt truly alive. You're not just my mate. You're my choice. My partner. Don't, Elara whispered. Don't say goodbye. It's not goodbye. It's a promise. I'll see you on the other side. The ceremony was held in the ancient temple at the heart of the palace, a massive open-air structure carved with runes that glowed silver in the moonlight. Hundreds of wolves filled the space, watching in silence. Elara was dressed in ceremonial robes, white and gold, marked with symbols she didn't understand. Her hands were shaking. Kael stood waiting at the altar, dressed in black and silver, looking every inch the king. But when their eyes met, she saw only the man who'd saved her in a cave. The ritual master, an ancient wolf with milky eyes, began to chant in a language Elara didn't know. Step forward, child of two worlds, he intoned. Elara walked to the altar on shaking legs. Kael Ashborne, king of wolves, do you claim this woman as your mate? I do. Kael's voice rang out strong. Elara Voss, will you accept this bond? Knowing it may consume you? Knowing you may lose yourself entirely? Everyone held their breath. Elara met Kael's golden eyes. Saw his fear. His hope. His love. I will. The ritual master bound their hands together with a silver cord. Then let the moon decide. He raised a ceremonial blade and cut both their palms, pressing their bleeding hands together. The moment their blood mixed, power exploded. Elara screamed. It felt like lightning running through her veins, burning away everything she was. She could feel Kael inside her mind, his presence overwhelming, memories, emotions, centuries of loneliness and duty and pain. Too much. It's too much. I'm drowning. Elara. Kael's voice cut through the chaos. Hold on to me. Don't let go. She tried. Gods, she tried. But the magic was tearing her apart. Her human self and the wolf nature were colliding, ripping each other to pieces. She was dying. She was burning. She was. Then she felt it. The child. Their child, glowing like a star inside her, reaching out with tiny tendrils of power, weaving between her and Kael, stabilizing the bond. The baby was saving her. Elara gasped and opened her eyes, except they weren't her eyes anymore. She could see in complete darkness. Could smell every wolf in the temple. Could hear heartbeats like drums. She looked at Kael and saw him not just with human sight, but with wolf senses. Saw his soul, brilliant and fierce and bound to hers with threads of silver light. The ritual master's voice was awed. The moon has accepted her. The bond is complete. The temple erupted in howls, some celebrating, some protesting, but all acknowledging the undeniable truth. Elara was now the Wolf King's mate. She collapsed immediately after. When she woke, she was in Kael's arms, being carried through the palace. "Did it work?" she whispered. "You're alive. That's all that matters. The baby? Safe. Strong." The healers are amazed. They've never seen anything like it. Elara closed her eyes, relief washing over her. She'd survived. They'd survived. But as Kael laid her in bed and healers swarmed to check her vitals, Elara caught sight of her reflection in the nearby mirror. Her eyes were fully golden now, permanent. Her features had sharpened. Her skin had an otherworldly glow. She wasn't human anymore. She wasn't fully wolf either. She was something new. Something unprecedented. And from the corner of the room, Lady Seraphine watched with cold calculation in her eyes. "Welcome to immortality, little human," she said softly. "I hope you survive it." Elara had become something unprecedented, neither human nor wolf, but both. And in the Wolf King's court, being unique made you either invaluable or a target. The changes came quickly after the ritual. Within 3 days, Elara could shift her hands into claws at will. Within a week, she could hear conversations happening 3 floors away. Her reflexes were faster than any human's, her strength approaching wolf-born levels. But the most unsettling change was mental. She could feel everyone's emotions now, a constant buzz of anxiety, anger, desire, fear pressing against her mind from every wolf in the palace. It was overwhelming. "It's the bond," Seraphina the healer explained. "You're connected to Kael, and, through him, to his entire pack. You're feeling what an alpha feels, the weight of every soul under your protection." "How does he stand it?" Elara asked, pressing her hands to her temples. "Practice. Control. And centuries of building walls." The healer mixed herbs into a tea. "Drink this. It'll help dull the sensations until you learn to block them yourself." Elara drank gratefully. Kael found her an hour later, curled up in the library trying to escape the emotional noise. "Still bad?" he asked gently. "It's like standing in a room where everyone's screaming at once." He sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. Immediately, the noise dulled. His presence was like a filter, calming the chaos. "Better," he murmured. "Much." They sat in comfortable silence until Rain burst in, looking grim. "We have a problem. The northern packs are demanding an audience. They're saying the bond is illegitimate because Elara isn't wolf-born. They want proof the child is yours." Kael's growl was low and dangerous. "They can demand whatever they want. I don't answer to them." "Actually," Rain said carefully, "according to the old laws, they have the right to call for verification when the succession is disputed. It's ancient tradition." "I don't care." "Kael." Elara caught his hand. "What kind of verification?" Rain winced. "A blood trial. They'd test the child's essence against yours. It's invasive and potentially dangerous for both you and the baby." "Absolutely not," Kael said flatly. "Then they'll claim the child is illegitimate. That you've been enchanted by a human witch. They're already gathering allies. Let them. I'll crush any rebellion." "Or," Elara interrupted quietly, "we give them what they want." Both Kael and Rain stared at her. "Elara, the risk is less than civil war," she finished. "Kael, your kingdom is tearing itself apart because of me. If a simple test will prove the truth, let's do it." "It's not simple. The blood trial involves ancient magic. If something goes wrong, then we make sure nothing goes wrong." She stood, squaring her shoulders. "Set up the trial. I'll prove the child is yours, and we'll end this." The blood trial was scheduled for 3 days later. In that time, Elara discovered just how many wolves wanted her gone. Poison in her food, stopped by a paranoid healer who tested everything. A training accident in the courtyard, prevented by Rain's quick reflexes. Anonymous notes slipped under her door. "Monster. Abomination. You'll die screaming." She didn't tell Kael about the notes. He had enough to worry about. Instead, she spent her time learning to control her new abilities. Rain taught her to fight, both in human form and using her emerging wolf strength. You're a natural, Rain said after Elara successfully disarmed her for the third time. Most new hybrids take months to adapt. You're doing it in weeks. The baby is helping, Elara said, pressing a hand to her growing belly. I can feel it. Like it's teaching me. That's not normal either. Nothing about this is normal. The blood trial was held in the Great Hall, with representatives from every major wolf pack in attendance. Lord Theron presided, his expression neutral but his eyes calculating. The trial is simple, he announced. Lady Elara will provide a blood sample. His Majesty will provide a blood sample. The child's essence will be drawn through ancient magic. If the child carries the king's bloodline, the 3 samples will harmonize. If not, he smiled coldly, we'll know the truth. Elara's hands were shaking, but she forced them steady. The ritual master approached with a silver bowl and a ceremonial blade. First, Kael's blood 3 drops that glowed gold when they hit the bowl. Then Elara's 3 drops that shimmered with mixed human and wolf essence, settling into a soft white glow. The crowd murmured. Mixed blood was unsettling to pure-blooded wolves. Now, the ritual master said, for the child. He placed his hand on Elara's stomach and began to chant. Power surged through her, painful and invasive. She bit back a scream as magic probed the baby, drawing out a single drop of its essence. The drop floated through the air and landed in the bowl. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the bowl exploded with light. Gold and white and something entirely new, a brilliant silver that neither Kael nor Elara possessed. The 3 blood samples swirled together, forming a pattern that hung in the air like a constellation. The ritual master's voice was shaking. The child is unprecedented. It carries the king's bloodline, yes, but also something more. Something the moon herself has blessed. Impossible, someone whispered. It's a miracle, Elder Rowan breathed. Lord Theron's expression had gone carefully blank. The bloodline is confirmed. The child is legitimate. Grudging murmurs of acceptance. Elara swayed, exhausted. Kael caught her immediately, lifting her into his arms. We're done here, he announced. Anyone who questions my mate or my heir again will answer to me personally. He carried Elara out of the hall, but not before she caught Seraphine's expression, cold fury barely concealed. This wasn't over. That night, Elara woke to darkness and the sound of breathing. Someone was in her room. She started to scream, but a hand clamped over her mouth. Quiet, a familiar voice hissed. It's me. Rain. What? There's a plot. I just uncovered it. They're planning to kill you tomorrow during the moon ceremony. Elara's blood went cold. Who? Lord Theron. Seraphine. And at least a dozen Northern Pack nobles. They've hired human assassins, Iron Covenant members, to make it look like a human extremist attack. It'll give them the excuse they need to move against Kael. Does he know? Not yet. They've blocked the palace communications. I only found out because I have spies in the Northern Pack. Rain's expression was grim. Elara, you need to leave. Tonight. I can get you out. No. What? I'm not running. Not again. Elara stood, her mind racing. If they're planning an attack, we use it against them. We catch them in the act and expose the conspiracy. That's insane. You could die. I could die running too. At least this way, we end the threat permanently. Elara grabbed Rain's shoulders. Do you trust me? Honestly? I barely know you. But you know Kael. And you know he'll never be safe as long as these traitors are in his court. So help me. Please. Rain studied her for a long moment. Then she grinned, a feral, dangerous expression. All right. Let's catch some traitors. The moon ceremony was a monthly ritual where the pack gathered to honor the moon goddess. It involved running in wolf form through the forest, hunting together, celebrating under the stars. Elara, as Kael's mate, was expected to participate, despite not being able to fully transform yet. Stay close to me, Kael instructed as they gathered in the courtyard. Don't stray from the pack. I won't, Elara lied. Because the plan required her to be bait. She'd told Rain to inform Kael's most trusted guards about the plot, but to keep Kael himself in the dark. If he knew, he'd never let her go through with it. Forgive me, she thought as the pack began to run. The attack came an hour into the ceremony. Elara had deliberately separated from the main pack, making herself vulnerable. She'd expected a few assassins. She hadn't expected 20. They emerged from the trees, human and wolf working together, weapons coated in silver poison designed to kill even hybrid wolves. Elara ran. Not in panic, in strategy. Rain had marked a path, leading them toward a clearing where Kael's guards waited in ambush. She just had to survive long enough to get there. An arrow whistled past her ear. Another buried itself in a tree inches from her head. Her wolf instinct screamed at her to fight, but she was outnumbered and still learning her abilities. Running was smarter. She burst into the clearing. Empty. No guards. No ambush. It was a trap. Rain, she screamed. But Rain was gone. Betrayed? Captured? Dead? The assassins surrounded her, weapons raised. Nothing personal, their leader said. But your existence threatens the natural order. You have to die. Elara's hands shifted into claws. Come try it, she snarled. They attacked. She fought like a demon, claws and teeth and desperate strength. She took down 3 before a blade caught her shoulder. Then another across her ribs. Pain exploded. She stumbled. This is it. I'm going to die here. Then a howl split the night, massive, and raged, unmistakably Kael. The Wolf King burst into the clearing in full form, a black monster of fur and fury, and the assassin's confidence shattered. He tore through them like paper. More wolves arrived, Kael's loyal guards, led by Rain, alive, thank gods. Within minutes, the assassins were dead or captured. Kael shifted back to human form and dropped to his knees beside Elara. You foolish, brilliant, insane woman, he breathed, examining her wounds. What were you thinking? That I'm tired of being the victim, Elara managed. Did we get them? The assassins confessed. They named Lord Theron and Seraphine as conspirators. His expression was murderous. They'll answer for this. Kael, you almost died. Again. Because of me. No. She caught his face in her bloody hands. Because some people can't accept change. But we stopped them. Together. He kissed her forehead. Never again. No more heroics. Can't promise that. Try. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Lord Theron and Lady Seraphine were arrested. Their trial lasted 1 day. The evidence was overwhelming. Both were found guilty of conspiracy to commit regicide and treason. Theron was executed. Seraphine was exiled, but not before she looked at Elara with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed as guards dragged her away. You're an abomination. And one day, someone will succeed where we failed. Elara didn't respond. Because she was beginning to realize something terrifying. As long as she and the child existed, there would always be those who saw them as threats. As mistakes that needed correcting. The court was safer now. But the world outside? That was another battlefield entirely. 2 weeks later, Elara stood in her chambers, staring at her reflection. For months pregnant now, the swell of her belly visible. Her eyes still golden, her features permanently sharpened. She looked like something from legend, beautiful and dangerous and wrong. Kael appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking? He murmured. That I'm scared. Of what I'm becoming. Of what the child will be. Of whether we can keep them safe in a world that wants them dead. We will. I promise you. You can't promise that. Watch me. He turned her to face him. Elara, you are the strongest person I've ever met. You survived dungeons, transformation, assassination attempts, and a wolf court that would make most warriors weep. You'll survive this too. And we'll raise our child to be just as strong. She wanted to believe him. But that night, she had the first dream. A vision of fire. Of cities burning. of a child with golden eyes standing in the ruins, power radiating from them like a star. And a voice, ancient and terrible. The bridge will break the world. The heir of two bloods will end all kingdoms. Elara awoke gasping. Was it just a nightmare? Or a prophecy? Some children are born to unite kingdoms. Others are born to burn them down. Elara's child was destined to do both, and no one could agree which fate was worse. The dreams came every night after that. Always the same. Cities in flames, wolves and humans locked in endless war, and her child, grown, powerful, terrible, standing at the center of the destruction. Sometimes the child was weeping. Sometimes they were laughing. Elara stopped sleeping. You need rest, Kael said, watching her pace their chambers at 3 a.m. The healers say stress is dangerous for the baby. The baby is the stress, Elara snapped, then immediately felt guilty. She pressed a hand to her belly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. What's happening, Elara? You've been different since the assassination attempt. She wanted to tell him about the dreams. About the prophecy. But something held her back, a superstitious fear that speaking it aloud would make it real. Just nightmares, she lied. Kael didn't believe her. She could feel his doubt through the bond. But he didn't push. I have to meet with the council this morning. The northern pacts are sending new representatives to replace Theron's faction. Will you be all right? I'll be fine. Go. He kissed her forehead and left, but his concern lingered in the bond like an ache. Elara was in the library an hour later, researching wolf prophecies, when she found it. An ancient text, written in a language she barely understood, but the illustrations were clear. A child born of two worlds, marked with gold eyes and silver blood, standing between a wolf and a human kingdom. The moon-touched child, the title read. Bridge or breaker. Savior or destroyer. The choice will be theirs, and the world will burn or bloom by their hand. Elara's hands shook as she read further. When the impossible child is born, the old world will end. Whether a new world rises or falls depends on how they are raised. Teach them love, and they will unite the kingdoms. Teach them hate, and they will drown both species in blood. No pressure, Elara muttered. Talking to yourself? She spun to find Elder Rowan standing in the doorway, his kind eyes knowing. I was just reading about your child's destiny. Yes, I know. He moved into the library with slow, careful steps. I've been expecting you to find that text eventually. You know about the prophecy? Every elder knows. We've been waiting for the moon-touched child for 5 centuries. Though I'll admit, none of us expected them to be born from the king's mate. He settled into a chair with a sigh. May I speak plainly? Please. The prophecy terrifies people because it offers no guarantees. Most prophecies say this will happen. This one says this could happen depending. That uncertainty makes it more dangerous than any curse. So what do? Love your child. Teach them to see both sides, human and wolf. Show them that being different isn't being broken. He smiled gently. You, of all people, should understand that. Elara sank into a chair. What if it's not enough? What if they're born with darkness? With destruction in their blood? Then you teach them to control it. Power isn't evil, child. It's how you use it that matters. I'm so scared. Good. Only fools aren't afraid of shaping the future. He stood to leave, then paused. But for what it's worth, I believe in you. You've already beaten impossible odds. You'll beat these too. Elara spent the rest of the day in research. She discovered there had been 3 previous, moon-touched children in recorded history. The first united the northern wolf packs into a single kingdom, bringing peace after generations of civil war. The second betrayed both humans and wolves, selling them out to vampire clans in a bid for power. Thousands died before they were stopped. The third simply disappeared. No one knew what happened to them. One savior. One destroyer. One mystery. Great, Elara muttered. 50-50 odds. She was about to close the books when she found one more reference, a handwritten note in the margin. The child's fate is not written in stars, but in bonds. Those they love will shape them more than any prophecy. Choose their influences wisely. Bonds. Love. Family. Those Elara could control. That evening, she found Kael on the battlements, staring out at the mountains. Council meeting went poorly, she guessed, joining him. They want more proof the child won't be dangerous. They're proposing we allow a priest to examine the baby after birth, to assess its nature. Absolutely not. That's what I said. But Elara. He turned to her, exhausted. How do I protect our child from people who are terrified of its existence? She took his hand. There's something I need to tell you. About the prophecy. She explained everything, the dreams, the research, the 3 previous moon-touched children. Kael listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. So our child could either save the world or destroy it, he said finally. Essentially. And there's no way to know which until it's too late. Not according to the texts. He laughed, a bitter sound. I've spent my whole life trying to be a good king, making impossible choices, balancing mercy and strength. And now I'm supposed to raise a child who could end everything I've built. Or save it. 50-50 odds aren't comforting, Elara. No. But we're not doing this alone. She placed her hand over his heart. We have each other. We have people we trust. And we have the bond. You can feel the baby through it, can't you? Yes. Do they feel evil to you? Destructive? Kael closed his eyes, reaching through the bond toward the small life growing inside Elara. After a moment, his expression softened. No. They feel curious, gentle, powerful, yes, but not cruel. Then that's what we hold on to. We raise them with love. We teach them that their power is a gift, not a curse. And we trust them to choose their own path. What if they choose wrong? Then we'll face it together. Like we've faced everything else. Kael pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. I don't deserve you, he murmured. No, you don't. But you're stuck with me anyway. The next morning, Elara received an unexpected visitor. A messenger arrived from the Crescent Empire, her homeland, the place that had abandoned her. The letter was from her sister Iris. Elara, I heard what happened. That you're alive. That you're with the Wolf King. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know our family failed you. But I need to see you. I have information about the Iron Covenant's plans, and about why the Empire abandoned the prisoners. Please, give me a chance to make things right. Your sister, Iris. Elara stared at the letter for a long time. Her family had disowned her, called her a traitor, left her to die. But Iris had been different, younger, kinder. She'd sent letters to the dungeons that the guards never delivered. It could be a trap, Rain said, reading over Elara's shoulder. It probably is, Elara agreed. But you're going to meet her anyway. Yes. Why? Elara folded the letter carefully. Because if there's even a chance she's telling the truth, I need to know why. I need to understand why my own people threw me away. And if it's an assassination attempt? Then you'll kill her before she kills me. Rain grinned. Now you're thinking like a wolf. The meeting was arranged for neutral territory, a tavern on the border between Wolflands and human territory. Kael had wanted to come, but Elara refused. This is something I need to do alone. Well, alone with 6 heavily armed guards. Rain commanded the guards, all hand-picked wolves loyal to Kael. They arrived at the tavern an hour before the meeting to secure the location. Elara sat at a corner table, trying to calm her racing heart. What would Iris look like? Would she be the same sweet girl Elara remembered, or had 2 years changed her? The door opened. A young woman entered, early 20s, with Elara's same dark hair and sharp features. But where Elara had hardened, Iris still looked soft. Uncertain. Their eyes met. Iris froze. Elara. Her voice cracked. Is it really you? It's me. Iris crossed the room in 3 strides and threw her arms around Elara, sobbing. I thought you were dead. They said you'd been executed. Father said we should forget you. But I couldn't, I kept searching. Iris. Iris, breathe. Elara pulled back, studying her sister's face. Why are you here? What information? Iris wiped her eyes and glanced around nervously. Can we talk privately? Rain stepped forward. No. It's all right, Elara said. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of them. Iris hesitated, then nodded. She pulled out a leather folder filled with documents. 6 months ago, I got a position in the Imperial Archives. I've been going through classified records, trying to find out what really happened during the treaty negotiations. She spread the documents on the table. The Empire didn't abandon the war prisoners as a concession, Iris said quietly. They were paid by human extremist groups who wanted the prisoners dead, specifically, the ones who'd spent time in wolf territory. Elara's blood went cold. Why? Contamination fears. The extremists believed anyone who'd been imprisoned by wolves was infected with wolf nature. They paid the Empire to leave the prisoners behind so the wolves would execute them. But the wolves didn't execute them, Rain said. No. Which is why the extremists hired the Iron Covenant to finish the job. They've been systematically hunting down every escaped prisoner for the past 2 years. Elara felt sick. How many? Of the 300 prisoners, 17 are still alive. You're one of them. 17. Out of 300. The others are in hiding, Iris continued. Scattered across the continent. But the Covenant is getting more aggressive. And now that you're carrying the Wolf King's child. She met Elara's eyes. They see you as the ultimate contamination. Living proof that humans and wolves can mix. They won't stop until you're dead. Let them try, Rain growled. But Elara's mind was racing. The prophecy. Someone must have told them about it. What prophecy? Iris asked. Elara explained briefly the moon-touched child, the potential to unite or destroy kingdoms. Iris went pale. Then they'll never stop. Because if your child could unite the species, that's exactly what the extremists fear most. So what do? You disappear. Take a new identity. Raise the child somewhere remote where no one will find you. No. Elara's voice was hard. I'm done running. I'm done letting others decide my fate. Then what? We fight. We expose the conspiracy. We prove that humans and wolves can coexist. She placed a hand on her belly. And we raise this child to be the bridge the prophecy promised, not through force, but through example. That's insane, Iris breathed. Probably. But it's the only option I can live with. Iris stared at her sister, this transformed, powerful version of the woman she'd known, and slowly nodded. Then I'll help. I'll keep gathering evidence. Building a case against the extremists. And when you're ready to move against them, I'll testify. Iris, that's dangerous. You think I don't know that? Elara, you're my sister. I failed you once. I won't do it again. For the first time in 2 years, Elara felt a spark of hope. Maybe they could do this. Maybe they could change things. Or maybe they were all going to die trying. Either way, at least they'd die fighting. Back at the palace, Elara shared Iris's information with Kael. His reaction was controlled fury. They've been hunting survivors for 2 years. All to maintain their precious species' purity. We need to find the other 17 survivors. Offer them protection. Agreed. I'll send Rain and a team. He paced, thinking. But this changes our strategy. We're not just protecting you and the child anymore. We're fighting a war against extremists on both sides, wolves who fear contamination and humans who fear change. So we fight it together. Build alliances. Show both species that the alternative is extinction. You make it sound simple. It won't be. But we don't have a choice. Kael pulled her close. When did you become so ruthlessly pragmatic? Somewhere between torture and transformation. I'm a quick learner. He kissed her, deep and desperate. We're going to survive this. All of us. Promise? On my crown. On my soul. On everything I am. That night, the baby kicked for the first time. Elara gasped, pressing Kael's hand to her belly. "Did you feel that?" she breathed. "Yes." His eyes were wide with wonder. "They're strong. They're going to have to be." They sat together in the darkness, hands on Elara's belly, feeling their impossible child move and grow. And for just a moment, the prophecies and dangers faded. For just a moment, they were simply parents-to-be, marveling at the miracle of life. Tomorrow, they'd plan. They'd strategize. They'd fight. But tonight? Tonight they hoped. Building a new world required more than hope, it required allies. And in a continent divided by centuries of hatred, finding those allies meant risking everything Elara had fought to protect. 6 months pregnant, and Elara could no longer hide. Her belly was prominent now, the baby's presence undeniable. But more than that, her transformation was complete. She moved with predatory grace, her golden eyes tracked movement with unnatural precision, and her mere presence made both wolves and humans uneasy. She was living proof that the old rules no longer applied. "The survivors are arriving today," Kael said over breakfast. Rain found 12 of the 17. The other 5 are either dead or too afraid to come forward. 12 former prisoners. 12 people who'd endured what Elara had endured. Where will we house them? The East Wing. I've assigned guards, volunteers who believe in what we're building. He paused. Elara, these people have been through hell. They may not trust easily. Neither did I. But you saved me anyway. His expression softened. You saved yourself. I just gave you the opportunity. The survivors arrived that afternoon in small groups, escorted by Rain's wolves. Elara waited in the courtyard, her heart pounding. What would they think of her? Would they see her as a traitor who'd sided with their captors? Or as someone who understood their pain? The first group consisted of 3 people, 2 men and a woman, all bearing the haunted look Elara recognized from her own reflection months ago. The woman stepped forward first. She was tall, with cropped dark hair and a scar running down her left cheek. "You're her," the woman said. "The translator. I remember you from Blackstone. I remember you too. You were in the cell next to mine. Your name is Mara. And these are Finn and Gregor." She studied Elara with sharp eyes. "They're saying you're the Wolf King's mate now. That you're carrying his child." Elara lifted her chin. "It's true. So you've chosen them over us. I've chosen survival. Just like you did when you accepted his offer of sanctuary." Mara's expression flickered with something that might have been respect. Fair point. More survivors arrived over the next hour. Each with their own story, their own scars, their own reasons for distrusting wolves. But they all shared one thing: they had nowhere else to go. That evening, Elara gathered the 12 survivors in a private dining hall. They sat around a long table, eyeing each other warily. Some were barely adults. Others were middle-aged, broken by years of captivity. All of them looked at Elara with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "Thank you for coming," Elara began. "I know this isn't easy. I know most of you would rather be anywhere else than in the Wolf King's palace." "Then why are we here?" asked a young man named Thomas. "Why did you bring us here?" "Because you're alive. Against all odds, you survived. And because the people who want us dead, both human and wolf, won't stop unless we stop them." "We're not warriors," Mara said. "We're broken prisoners trying to survive." "So was I," Elara replied. 6 months ago, I was dying in a cave. Now I'm the Wolf King's mate, carrying a child that shouldn't exist and planning to change the world. You don't have to be a warrior to fight back. You just have to refuse to disappear." "What do you want from us?" Gregor asked quietly. "I want you to be visible. I want you to let people see that you survived, that you're more than the Empire's acceptable losses. I want you to be proof that humans and wolves can coexist." "By doing what exactly?" "By living. By rebuilding your lives here, if you choose. By telling your stories when the time comes." And she hesitated. "By helping me find the others. The 5 who are still out there, hiding." "You want to make us targets," Thomas said flatly. You're already targets. The Iron Covenant has been hunting you for 2 years. At least here, you have protection. You have allies. You have a chance to fight back." Silence fell over the table. Then Mara spoke. "What makes you think we won't betray you? Turn you over to the Covenant for our own safety, because I'm offering you something they never will, a future. A place where you don't have to hide what you've been through. Where being different isn't a death sentence." "Pretty words," Mara said. "But we've heard pretty words before." "Then watch what I do, not what I say." Elara stood, placing her hands on the table. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to give this a chance. Stay for a month. Let the healers treat your wounds. Eat real food. Sleep without fear. And if at the end of that month you want to leave, I'll give you coin and safe passage to anywhere you want to go. No strings attached." The survivors exchanged glances. Finally, Mara nodded slowly. 1 month. But if this is a trap, it's not. I swear it on my child's life. Over the next 2 weeks, the palace transformed. The survivors slowly began to emerge from their shells. Healers treated old injuries. The kitchen staff made sure they had warm meals. Elara visited them daily, sometimes just sitting in silence, sometimes sharing her own story. She learned their names, their histories, their dreams. Mara had been a blacksmith's daughter, taken prisoner when her village was raided. She dreamed of opening her own forge. Thomas had been a scholar, captured while studying ancient texts. He wanted to teach again. Finn didn't talk much, but he had a gift for working with animals. The palace horses seemed to calm in his presence. Each of them carried scars, visible and invisible. But slowly, carefully, they began to heal. And they began to believe. But not everyone in the palace was happy about the new arrivals. "This is madness," Lord Brecken, one of the remaining council members, said during a private meeting. "You're housing human prisoners, the very people we fought a war against, and expecting the pack to accept it? They're not prisoners anymore," Kael said coldly. "They're refugees under my protection. They're a security risk. What if they're spies for the Empire? The Empire abandoned them to die. They have no loyalty there. Then what about the Covenant? What if they're bait to draw assassins into the palace? Then we deal with the assassins. Like we always have. Your Majesty, please see reason. The pack is already uneasy about Lady Elara. Adding more humans to the mix is exactly what we need to do if we want to build a lasting peace." Kael's voice was firm. "The old ways failed, Brecken. War after war, generation after generation, and nothing changed. My child will inherit a different world. One where humans and wolves can coexist. And if that makes the pack uncomfortable, they'll learn to adapt." Brecken looked like he wanted to argue more, but something in Kael's expression stopped him. "As you command, Your Majesty." The real test came 3 weeks after the survivors arrived. Elara had arranged for a small gathering, a dinner where the survivors would meet some of the more moderate wolf nobles. A chance to show that coexistence was possible. This could go very badly, Rain warned as they prepared the hall. Or it could go very well, Elara countered, adjusting the table settings. "You're an optimist now?" "No, just desperate." The dinner started awkwardly. Wolves and humans sat on opposite sides of the table, eyeing each other with suspicion. The conversation was stilted, filled with uncomfortable silences. Then Elder Rowan asked Thomas about his scholarly work. Thomas, surprised to be addressed directly, began explaining his research into ancient languages. One of the younger wolves, a female named Lissa, lit up. "I've studied the old tongues too. There's a text in the library I've been trying to translate for years." "The Chronicles of the Moon Wars?" Thomas asked excitedly. "Yes, you know it?" And just like that, the ice began to crack. Mara and a wolf craftsman named Doran discovered a mutual love of metalwork. Finn found himself in conversation with the stable master about breeding techniques. By the end of the evening, the two groups weren't friends, but they weren't enemies either. They were just people, finding common ground. Elara caught Kael's eye across the room. He smiled, genuine, warm, hopeful. Maybe this could work. But success brought new dangers. 2 days after the dinner, Iris sent an urgent message. The Covenant knows about the survivors. They're planning something big. Be careful. Elara shared the message with Kael and Rain immediately. We need to increase security, Rain said. Double the guards, restrict access to the survivors' wing. No, Elara interrupted. That's what they want. They want us to hide, to act afraid. We need to do the opposite. What are you suggesting? Kael asked. A public demonstration. Show the kingdom, both wolves and humans, that the survivors exist. That they're thriving. Make it impossible for the Covenant to attack without exposing themselves. That's incredibly risky, Rain said. Everything we're doing is risky. But if we hide, we're admitting that we're ashamed. That we think coexistence is something to be concealed. Kael studied her for a long moment. What did you have in mind? A festival. To celebrate the coming birth of the heir. We invite representatives from human territories, from neutral cities, from wolf packs across the kingdom. We show them the survivors, happy and healthy. We show them that a new world is possible. The Covenant will see it as a provocation. Good. Let them come out of the shadows. Let them show the world what they really are, extremists trying to maintain division through violence. You're using yourself as bait again, Kael said quietly. I'm using hope as a weapon. There's a difference. Rain groaned. I'm going to need so many more guards. Planning the festival took 2 weeks of intense work. Invitations were sent to every major city and pack. The palace kitchens worked around the clock preparing food. Musicians were hired. Decorations went up throughout the palace grounds. And the survivors were given a choice, participate or stay hidden. All 12 chose to participate. We're tired of hiding, Mara said, speaking for the group. If you're willing to stand up for us, we'll stand up with you. The day of the festival arrived with clear skies and nervous energy. Hundreds of guests flooded the palace grounds, wolves and humans, mingling with varying degrees of comfort. Some came out of curiosity. Others came to show support. And some, Elara suspected, came to witness the spectacle of the Wolf King's unprecedented choices. Elara stood on a raised platform, her pregnancy clearly visible in the formal gown she wore. Kael stood beside her, his hand protectively on her lower back. Thank you all for coming, Kael began, his voice carrying across the crowd. We gather today to celebrate not just the coming birth of my heir, but the possibility of a new era. For too long, wolves and humans have been divided by fear and hatred. But standing before you is proof that division is not inevitable. He gestured to the survivors, who stood in a line to the side of the platform. These 12 people survived the worst of our old conflicts. They were abandoned by their own kind, hunted by extremists, left to die. But they lived. And now they stand here in the heart of the Wolf Kingdom, not as enemies, but as neighbors. As allies. As proof that we can be better than our past. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some uncertain. Then Elara stepped forward. I was one of them, she said, her voice steady. I was a prisoner, abandoned and dying. The Wolf King saved me when he had every reason not to. And in doing so, he showed me that the divisions we think are permanent are actually just choices we keep making. Today, I'm asking you to make a different choice. Choose hope over fear. Choose connection over isolation. Choose to believe that the child I'm carrying, this impossible, unprecedented child, represents not a threat, but a promise. She placed her hand on her belly. A promise that our children don't have to inherit our wars. That they can inherit something better. For a moment, silence. Then Elder Rowan began to applaud. Others joined slowly at first, then building to a wave of sound that washed over the platform. Not everyone applauded. Elara saw the dissenting faces, the wolves and humans who still looked skeptical or hostile. But enough people believed. And that was a start. The attack came 3 hours later, during the feast. Explosions rocked the northern wall. Screams erupted from the crowd. Armed fighters, both human covenant members and rogue wolves, poured through the breach. "Protect the survivors," Kael roared, shifting into wolf form. Chaos erupted. But this time, something different happened. The survivors didn't run. They fought. Mara grabbed a serving platter and used it as a shield, protecting a young wolf noble from an assassin's blade. Thomas used his knowledge of the palace layout to lead civilians to safety. Finn coordinated with the stable master to evacuate people through the back passages. And the wolves who'd attended the dinner, the ones who'd spent 3 weeks getting to know the survivors, fought alongside them. Not as separate groups. As one. The battle was brutal but short. Between Kael's forces and the unexpected resistance from the survivors and their wolf allies, the attackers were overwhelmed. When the dust settled, Elara stood in the courtyard, breathing hard, her hands still shifted into claws. She'd fought too. Protected the people around her. Refused to hide. Kael approached, shifting back to human form, covered in blood but alive. "You were right," he said, pulling her close. They needed to see this. All of it. Around them, wolves and humans tended to each other's wounds. Shared water. Comforted the frightened. The divisions hadn't disappeared. But they'd cracked. And, through those cracks, something new was growing. That night, as healers worked and the survivors recovered in their rooms, Mara approached Elara. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For believing we were worth saving. For giving us a reason to fight instead of just survive." Elara clasped her hand. "You gave yourselves that reason. I just opened a door. Then we'll make sure others walk through it. Every mother fears labor. But when your child is prophesied to either save or destroy the world, birth becomes more than pain. It becomes destiny's first test." 7 months pregnant, and Elara felt like she was about to explode. The baby had grown impossibly fast, their power increasing daily. She could feel them now, not just movements, but emotions. Curiosity. Excitement. Sometimes, terrifyingly, what felt like awareness far beyond what any unborn child should possess. "They're listening," Elara said one evening as she and Kael sat by the fire. She pressed her hand to her belly. "When we talk, I can feel them paying attention. Learning." Kael placed his hand beside hers. Through the bond, she felt his wonder mixed with fear. "What are they learning?" "Everything. Your voice. My heartbeat. The emotions around us." She paused. "Kael, what if the prophecy is right? What if how we raise them really does determine everything? Then we'll raise them with love. With patience. With the knowledge that they're not defined by what others expect, they're defined by their own choices." "You make it sound simple." "It won't be. But we'll do it together." The baby kicked hard, and both of them felt it through the bond. A surge of pure joy from the child, as if they understood and approved. "They're going to be extraordinary," Kael whispered. "I know. That's what scares me." The contractions started 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night. Elara woke to pain lancing through her abdomen, different from the aches and discomfort she'd grown used to. This was sharp. Insistent. "Wrong." "Kael," she gasped. He was awake instantly. "What's wrong?" "The baby." Another contraction hit, stealing her breath. "It's too early. We still have a month." "Rain." Kael's bellow shook the windows. "Get the healers." "Now." Within minutes, the room flooded with people. Serafina the healer took one look at Elara and her expression went grim. "The child is coming. Now." "It's too early," Elara repeated, fear clawing at her chest. "The child doesn't care about our timelines." Serafina began issuing orders to her assistants. "Your Majesty, you need to leave." "Absolutely not." The birth of a hybrid child, especially one this powerful, is dangerous. "If something goes wrong, then I'll be here." Kael's voice was steel. He took Elara's hand. "I'm not leaving her." Serafina looked like she wanted to argue, but another contraction made Elara scream, and there was no more time for debate. The labor was agonizing. Not just physical pain, though there was plenty of that. But the baby's power was surging with each contraction, flooding through Elara's body in waves that felt like lightning and fire. "Something's wrong," Serafina said after examining her. "The child is fighting. They're not ready to be born, but the magic is forcing the process." "What does that mean?" Kael demanded. "It means the baby's power is too great for Elara's body to contain anymore. They're being pushed out, but they're resisting. If we can't get them to cooperate, we could lose them both." "No," Elara gasped through the pain. "Talk to them. Through the bond." "Elara." "They're aware, Kael. I told you. They can understand. So talk to them. Tell them it's safe. Tell them," she screamed as another contraction hit, more violent than before. Kael closed his eyes, reaching through the bond toward his child. "Little one," he said softly, aloud so Elara could hear. "I know you're scared. I know the world outside seems dangerous and bright and overwhelming. But your mother needs you to let go. She needs you to trust us. We'll protect you. We'll keep you safe. But you have to come to us first." For a moment, nothing changed. Then Elara felt it, the baby's fear. Not of being born, but of what came after. They'd been listening, learning, understanding far too much. They knew about the prophecy. About the people who wanted them dead. About the impossible expectations placed on them before they'd even drawn breath. They were terrified. "Oh, sweetheart," Elara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm scared too. Your father is scared. Everyone is scared. But we're going to love you anyway. No matter what you become. No matter what you choose. You're ours, and we'll fight the whole world to keep you safe." She felt Kael's presence join hers in the bond, surrounding the baby with warmth and protection and absolute, unwavering love. "We've got you," Kael murmured. "We'll always have you. Now come meet us. Please." The baby's fear didn't disappear, but it eased. And they stopped fighting. The final stage of labor lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of Elara screaming and bleeding and pushing while Serafina and her team worked frantically. 3 hours of Kael holding her hand, whispering encouragement, his own fear bleeding through the bond. Then, finally, a cry split the air. Not a normal newborn's wail, but something else. Something that made every wolf in the palace howl in response, that sent a shockwave of pure magical energy rippling out from the birthing room. "It's a girl," Serafina breathed, her voice filled with awe. She placed the baby on Elara's chest, and the world stopped. The child was beautiful. Tiny and perfect, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that were already open, eyes that swirled with gold and silver, colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, and when she looked up at Elara, there was intelligence there. Recognition. "Hello," Elara whispered, touching her daughter's cheek. "Hello, little one." The baby cooed, and power rippled outward again, gentler this time. Around the room, candles flickered. The air itself seemed to shimmer. "What's happening?" one of the healer's assistants asked nervously. "She's settling into the world," Serafina said, but her voice was uncertain. "I've never seen anything like this." Kael reached out with one finger, and his daughter wrapped her tiny hand around it. The bond flared, not just between Kael and Elara anymore, but including the baby. A triangle of connection so strong it took Elara's breath away. "She's perfect," Kael said, his voice rough with emotion. "She's absolutely perfect." "What should we name her?" Elara asked. They'd discussed names for months, but had never settled on one. Now, looking at their daughter's otherworldly eyes, Elara knew what felt right. "Lyra," she said. "After the constellation. The bridge between earth and sky." "Lyra," Kael repeated, testing it. "Lyra Ashborne. Bridge between worlds." The baby Lyra made a sound that might have been approval, or might have been her first laugh. The palace erupted in celebration. News of the birth spread like wildfire. Wolves howled from the battlements. The survivors gathered in the courtyard, looking up at the windows of the birthing room with tears in their eyes. Elder Rowan blessed the child from outside the door. Rain stood guard with a fierce protectiveness that went beyond duty. But not everyone celebrated. In the shadows, those who feared the prophecy whispered. Those who wanted the old ways to continue plotted. And far away, in human cities, the Iron Covenant received word and began mobilizing. The moon-touched child had been born, and the world would never be the same. 3 days after the birth, something extraordinary happened. Elara was nursing Lyra when the baby's eyes suddenly glowed bright silver. Power pulsed through the room, and suddenly, Elara could see things. Flashes of images. Emotions not her own. The survivors in the East Wing, feeling hope for the first time in years. Wolves in the courtyard, their ancient prejudices beginning to crack. Her sister Iris in the human capital, gathering more evidence against the extremists. And somewhere far away, a group of people, both human and wolf, who were suffering. Imprisoned. Waiting to be saved. The vision faded and Lyra stopped glowing. What was that? Elara breathed. Serafina, who'd been checking on them, looked shaken. The baby showed you something. She's already using her power, connecting to others, seeing what they see. Can she control it? I don't know. She's 3 days old. She shouldn't be able to do any of this. Kael entered the room, concern etched on his face. I felt that. Through the bond. Elara, what did you see? She described the visions, and his expression grew thoughtful. She's not just a bridge between species, he said slowly. She's a bridge between people. She can feel what others feel, see what they see. She could unite people by making them understand each other. Or tear them apart if she's not careful, Elara countered. Kael, this power, it's too much for a child. How is she supposed to grow up normally with this inside her? She won't grow up normally. We have to accept that. He sat beside her, touching Lyra's tiny hand. But we'll teach her. We'll help her learn control. And we'll make sure she knows she's more than her power. She's our daughter first. Lyra looked up at her parents with those strange, knowing eyes. And smiled. 1 week after the birth, the first delegation arrived. Representatives from 3 human cities, requesting an audience with the Wolf King and his mate. They want to see the child, Kael said, reading the formal request. They want proof that she's not a threat. And if we refuse? They'll assume we're hiding something dangerous. Elara looked down at Lyra, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Then we show them. We let them see that she's just a baby. Powerful, yes, but not a weapon. Not a monster. Are you sure? No. But hiding her will only make things worse. The audience was held in the throne room, with heavy security. Mara and several other survivors insisted on being present. You stood up for us. We'll stand up for your daughter. The human delegates entered, eyeing the wolves with suspicion and the survivors with shock. You're alive, one of them, a woman named Counselor Varen, said to Thomas. We were told all the prisoners had been executed. You were lied to, Thomas replied calmly. We survived. And now we're thriving. Varen's gaze shifted to Elara, holding Lyra. The child. Her name is Lyra, Elara said firmly. And yes, she's the one the prophecies speak of. But before she's the moon-touched child or the bridge between worlds, she's my daughter. She's a baby who needs love and protection, not fear and prejudice. May we see her? Elara hesitated, then stood, carrying Lyra closer to the delegates. The baby was awake, her strange eyes watching the newcomers with innocent curiosity. Varen stared at her for a long moment. She's beautiful. She is. And dangerous? Potentially. Like any child with power. But we're raising her to use that power wisely. To build bridges, not burn them. Bold words. But words are easy. Actions matter. Then watch our actions, Kael said, stepping forward. Watch how we raise her. Watch how humans and wolves are learning to live together in this palace. Watch how the survivors you thought were dead are now building new lives. And then decide whether we're building something worth protecting or something to fear. Varen and her colleagues exchanged glances. "We'll watch," she said finally. "And we'll report what we see to our cities. But know this, there are those among us who will never accept this child, who see her as the end of humanity as we know it. Then they'll be proven wrong," Elara said quietly. "Just like everyone who underestimated me was proven wrong. Just like everyone who thought wolves and humans could never coexist will be proven wrong. We're not asking for blind faith. We're asking for a chance." "A chance to do what?" "To prove that the prophecy's good ending is possible. That our daughter can be the bridge, not the breaker." Lyra chose that moment to reach out her tiny hand toward Varen. The counselor looked startled, then, hesitantly, let the baby grasp her finger. For a moment, something passed between them. A flash of understanding. A glimpse of hope. Varen pulled her hand back, looking shaken. "She's extraordinary." "Yes. And we're going to make sure she knows that's a gift, not a curse." After the delegates left, Elara sat with Lyra on the balcony, watching the sun set over the mountains. "You have no idea what you are, do you?" she whispered to her daughter. "You don't know about prophecies or politics or the weight everyone's putting on your tiny shoulders. You're just a baby who wants to be fed and held and loved." Lyra cooed, reaching up to touch Elara's face. "We're going to protect that innocence as long as we can," Elara promised. "You'll grow up knowing you're loved first, powerful second. You'll get to choose who you become. And whatever you choose, we'll be there." Kael joined them, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Bold promises," he murmured. "Someone has to make them. We'll keep them. Together." Lyra looked up at her parents, her eyes swirling with gold and silver. And in that moment, Elara felt it through the bond, not fear, not confusion, but simple, pure contentment. Their daughter felt safe, felt loved. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to tip the scales toward the prophecy's better ending. Lyra has been born, the moon-touched child is here. But as her powers begin to emerge, the world watches and waits. Will she unite the kingdoms or tear them apart? And can Elara and Kael protect their daughter from a destiny written in stars? They say a child's first year shapes who they become. But when that child can sense emotions, bridge minds, and command power beyond comprehension, every moment becomes a lesson that could change the world. 3 months after Lyra's birth, the palace had transformed into something unprecedented. A wolf nursemaid sang lullabies while a human survivor, Thomas, read ancient texts aloud to the baby. Mara had forged a custom cradle with protective runes taught by Elder Rowan. The kitchen staff, both wolf and human, competed to create the perfect foods for Elara to eat while nursing. Lyra was everyone's child, and she was thriving. But her powers were growing faster than anyone expected. "She's learning words," Elara said one morning, watching Lyra babble in her cradle. "Not baby sounds. Actual words. And I don't think she's learning them from us." "What do you mean?" Kael asked, leaning over to smile at his daughter. "Watch." Elara placed her hand on Lyra's forehead. The baby's eyes glowed silver for just a moment, and suddenly, Elara felt a rush of sensations that weren't her own. Rain's concern about border patrols. The cook's pride in that morning's bread. Elder Rowan's quiet contentment as he meditated in the garden. "She's connected to everyone in the palace," Elara breathed. "She's feeling what they feel, learning from their thoughts." "Kael, she's not just listening to us teach her, she's learning from everyone simultaneously." Kael looked awed and terrified. "How is that possible?" "I don't know. But it explains why she's developing so fast. She has hundreds of teachers, whether they know it or not." He paused. "That's actually beautiful. And terrifying. Welcome to parenthood." By 6 months, Lyra could speak in short sentences in 3 languages. She'd picked up the common tongue from Elara and Kael, the old wolf language from the pack, and ancient human dialect from Thomas's scholarly readings. "More story," she demanded one evening, pointing at Thomas's book. The scholar looked delighted and terrified. Which story, little one? The kind one, where they make friends. Thomas flipped through pages. Ah, the tale of the first alliance. When wolves and humans first learned to coexist. Yes, that one. As Thomas read, Lyra's eyes began to glow softly. Around the room, everyone present, Elara, Kael, Mara, Rain, suddenly felt a wave of emotion that wasn't their own. Hope, longing, a desperate desire for the story to be real. It was Lyra, broadcasting her feelings through the bond. She wants it to be true, Mara whispered. She wants the alliance to be real so badly. It can be, Elara said, touching her daughter's hand. That's what we're building, remember? Lyra looked up at her mother with those swirling eyes. Then why do some people still hate? The question hung in the air. How do you explain prejudice to a 6-month-old who can feel everyone's emotions? How do you make sense of hatred when your child's entire existence is about connection? Because they're scared, Kael said finally. They're afraid of change. Afraid of being different. Afraid of losing what they know. But fear hurts, Lyra said simply. I feel it. It hurts them and it hurts everyone around them. Yes, that's why we're teaching them to be brave instead. Lyra absorbed this, her small face serious. Then she placed her tiny hands on Kael's and Elara's faces. I'll help, she declared. I'll show them it doesn't have to hurt. The real test of Lyra's nature came 2 weeks later. A dispute broke out between a wolf noble and one of the human survivors, something about territory in the shared garden spaces. The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, old prejudices surfacing. Your kind always takes more than you're given. And your kind never shares unless forced. Guards were moving to intervene when Lyra toddled into the garden. At 8 months old, she'd recently learned to walk, with supernatural balance that made her movements seem almost otherworldly. Stop, she said, her small voice carrying unexpected authority. Both arguers turned to look at her. Lyra walked between them, placing one hand on the wolf noble's leg and one on the survivor's hand. Her eyes glowed brilliant silver. And suddenly, both combatants gasped. Through Lyra's touch, they felt each other's emotions. The wolf noble experienced the survivor's trauma from years of imprisonment, the fear that still haunted him. The survivor felt the wolf's deep anxiety about change, his worry that his traditional way of life was disappearing. Understanding passed between them. Not agreement, not yet, but understanding. When Lyra released them, both stood in stunned silence. You both hurt, Lyra said simply. But hurting each other makes it worse. Share the garden. Share the hurt too. Then maybe it gets smaller. She toddled away, leaving 2 grown adults staring after her in wonder. Did that just happen? The survivor asked. I think so, the wolf noble replied. I felt what you've been through. I'm sorry. I felt your fear too. I didn't realize. The survivor paused. Maybe we could talk? Actually talk. They sat on a garden bench together and, for the first time, really listened to each other. Word of Lyra's gift spread quickly. Within weeks, people were requesting her presence to mediate disputes. Small things at first, property disagreements, misunderstandings, minor conflicts. We can't let her become a tool, Elara insisted during a council meeting. She's a child, not a conflict resolution device. But she's so effective, Lord Brecken argued. In 2 weeks, she's resolved more disputes than our mediators handle in months. Because she's forcing people to feel each other's pain. That's incredibly intimate. Invasive, even. Elara shook her head. What happens when she's older and realizes we've been using her empathic abilities like a weapon? It's not a weapon if it brings peace, Elder Rowan said gently. Isn't it? We're teaching her that her value lies in what she can do for others, not who she is as a person. Kael placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. What do you suggest? We let her choose. When she's old enough to understand the implications of her gift, we let her decide how to use it. Until then, we protect her childhood. Let her be a child first, a bridge second. The council murmured, some in agreement, others in dissent. With respect, Your Majesty, Councillor Varen, who'd become a regular visitor, said, the child doesn't have the luxury of a normal childhood. The Iron Covenant grows bolder every day. There are whispers of a major attack being planned. If Lyra could prevent bloodshed. She's 8 months old, Elara said flatly. She shouldn't have to prevent anything. But she can. That's the point of the prophecy, isn't it? She's the bridge between. She's my daughter. Elara's voice cracked. Before she's a prophecy or a bridge or a solution to your political problems, she's my daughter. And I won't sacrifice her childhood to anyone's agenda. Not even my own. Silence fell. Then Lyra's voice came from the doorway. Mama's scared. Everyone turned to see the toddler standing there, having escaped her nursemaid, her eyes glowing softly. She walked to Elara and raised her arms to be picked up. Elara lifted her, holding her close. Mama's scared I'll be used, Lyra said, with understanding far beyond her months. But I want to help. The hurt is so loud sometimes. When I make it smaller, everything feels better. Sweetheart. I know I'm little. I know I should play and learn and be happy. Lyra touched Elara's face. But I feel everyone. All the time. The hurt is already mine. Making it smaller helps me too. Kael moved closer, wrapping both of them in his arms. What are you saying, little one? I'm saying I choose to help. But only when I want to. Not when people tell me to. She looked at the council with those ancient eyes. I'm not a tool. I'm Lyra. And I'll decide when to be a bridge. At 8 months old, their daughter had just set boundaries that most adults struggled to maintain. The council members sat in stunned silence. Well, Elder Rowan said finally, a smile tugging at his lips, I believe the child has spoken. The major test came 3 months later. A crisis erupted at the northern border. A group of rogue wolves had attacked a human settlement, and in retaliation, human militias had massacred a wolf pack. Tensions were at a breaking point. Both sides were mobilizing for war. We have to intervene, Kael said, strapping on his armor. If this escalates, it could undo everything we've built. Then we go together, Elara said. Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe. I'm your mate and your partner. Where you go, I go. And Lyra? They both looked at their daughter, who was playing with wooden blocks in the corner, building what looked like bridges between towers. She stays here, Elara said firmly. With Rain and the guards. This is too dangerous. I'm coming. Both parents turned to see Lyra standing, her small face set with determination. No, sweetheart. It's not safe. People are hurting. Lots of people. I can feel them from here. Tears filled her eyes. They're so scared and angry, and it's getting bigger and bigger. If someone doesn't make them understand each other, they'll all die. Lyra. I choose to help, she said, repeating her own words from months before. This is when I want to be a bridge. Elara looked at Kael, anguish in her eyes. Their daughter was 11 months old. Still a baby in so many ways. But also something more. We protect her, Kael said finally. Every second. She doesn't leave our sight. And if there's any danger, any at all, we get her out immediately. Kael. She's right, Elara. If anyone can stop this war before it starts, it's her. And we can't cage her gift any more than we can cage who she is. They traveled to the border with a heavily armed escort. The scene was chaos, 2 camps facing each other across a burned field, weapons drawn, leaders shouting accusations. Lyra took it all in with wide eyes, her small hand gripping Elara's tightly. So much hurt, she whispered. Kael strode forward, alpha power radiating from him. Enough. Both sides turned to face the Wolf King. This ends now, he commanded. Put down your weapons and talk. Talk. The human militia leader spat. Your wolves slaughtered innocent people. After your settlers poisoned our water supply, the wolf pack leader snarled. That's a lie. You calling me a liar? They lunged for each other. and Lyra walked between them. Her parents shouted in alarm, but it was too late. The toddler stood in the middle of the battlefield, her eyes blazing silver, her small hands outstretched. Power erupted from her like a wave. Every person on that field, wolf and human, soldier and civilian, suddenly felt what Lyra felt. The overwhelming torrent of pain and fear and anger from both sides. The grief of parents who'd lost children. The terror of families watching their homes burn. The desperate, aching desire for the violence to stop. It was too much. Too raw. Too real. Grown warriors fell to their knees, weeping. Leaders who'd been ready to kill each other moments before now sobbed with the weight of shared grief. And in the center of it all stood Lyra, tears streaming down her face, holding all that pain inside her small body. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice echoing with power. "This is what hate costs. This is what fear does. You're killing each other and it hurts everyone. Your pain. Their pain. My pain. It's all the same pain." She swayed, exhausted. Elara rushed forward, catching her daughter before she collapsed. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got you, baby." Lyra looked up at her mother with eyes that were ancient and infant at once. "Did it work? Did I make them understand?" Elara looked around at the battlefield full of weeping warriors, at enemies comforting each other, at the weapons lying forgotten in the dirt. "Yes, sweetheart. You made them understand." The two sides talked for 3 days straight. Negotiations were hard, painful, with setbacks and arguments. But no one picked up their weapons again. In the end, they reached an agreement, reparations for both sides, shared governance of the disputed territory, and a promise to try understanding before violence. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As they traveled home, Lyra slept in Elara's arms, exhausted from what she'd done. "She saved hundreds of lives today," Kael said quietly. "And it nearly broke her," Elara replied. "Did you see her face? She felt all of it. Every death, every grief, every moment of pain. That's too much for anyone, let alone a baby. She chose it. Because she's too young to understand the cost." Elara held her daughter closer. "We have to be more careful. We have to protect her from herself sometimes. How do we do that when she's already more powerful than both of us combined?" Elara had no answer. That night, as Lyra slept in her cradle, Elara and Kael sat together in the darkness. "The prophecy is coming true," Kael said. "She's becoming the bridge. She's uniting people in ways we never could." "I know. And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because bridges bear weight, Kael. They carry the burden of everyone who crosses them. And our daughter is so small. What happens when the weight becomes too much? Then we hold her up. We help her carry it. What if that's not enough?" Kael pulled Elara close. "Then we teach her that it's okay to rest. That being a bridge doesn't mean carrying everyone all the time. That she can say no. Will she listen? I don't know. But we have to try." In her cradle, Lyra stirred, her eyes opening briefly. Through the bond, Elara felt her daughter's simple thought, "Love you, Mama. Love you, Papa. Love everyone." Then she slept again, innocent and powerful and perfectly, impossibly herself. Lyra is becoming the bridge the prophecy promised, but at what cost? As her powers grow and the world's demands increase, can Elara and Kael protect their daughter from being consumed by her own gift? Every story has an ending. But for Elara, Kael, and their extraordinary daughter, this ending was just the beginning of a world reborn. 2 years later. Lyra was 3 years old, and the world had changed. Not overnight. Not perfectly. But undeniably. The Wolf Kingdom had become a sanctuary for those seeking refuge from prejudice, humans and wolves living side by side, learning from each other, building something new. Other kingdoms watched with a mixture of hope and suspicion. And the Iron Covenant, driven underground by Iris's evidence and the shifting public opinion, planned their final strike. The warning came from an unexpected source. A former Covenant member, a woman named Helena who'd witnessed Lyra's bridge building firsthand and defected, arrived at the palace bloody and exhausted. "They're coming," she gasped as healers worked on her wounds. The Covenant leadership. They've gathered allies from extremist wolf packs and human militias. They're calling it the Purification. They plan to attack during the Unity Festival and kill everyone. The survivors, the mixed families, and especially Lyra. Elara's blood ran cold. The Unity Festival was in 3 days, a massive celebration where humans and wolves from across the continent gathered to commemorate 2 years of peace. Thousands would be there, including their daughter. How many? Kael demanded. At least 500 trained fighters. Maybe more. Helena met his eyes. They know Lyra is your weakness. They plan to use her to draw you out, then kill everyone while you're distracted. Then we cancel the festival. Evacuate. No, Elara interrupted. That's what they want. They want us to show that we're afraid. That we can't protect what we've built. Elara, they're targeting our daughter. I know. And we'll protect her. But we'll do it by showing them that their hatred has already lost. That the world has changed too much to go back. Kael looked like he wanted to argue, but then Lyra entered the room, holding Thomas's hand. Mama? Papa? Why are you scared? She was so small still. 3 years old with her mother's features and her father's golden eyes, wisdom and innocence dancing in equal measure across her face. Come here, little one, Elara said, lifting her daughter onto her lap. Bad people are coming, Lyra said simply. She could feel it through the bond, through her connection to everyone in the palace. They want to hurt us because they're afraid. Yes. Can I help? Elara and Kael exchanged looks. They'd spent 2 years trying to give Lyra a childhood while honoring her gift. Let her play and learn while also teaching her to control her empathic abilities. It had been a constant balance, protecting her from the world's demands while preparing her for a destiny she hadn't chosen. What do you want to do? Kael asked gently. Lyra thought for a moment, her small face serious. I want to show them, she said finally. Show them what we built. Show them that the scary thing they're afraid of is actually good. Maybe then they won't want to fight anymore. Sweetheart, some people can't be reached. But some can, Lyra insisted. Helena was one of them. She changed her mind. Maybe others will too. And if they don't? Lyra's eyes glowed softly. Then you and Mama and all our friends will protect me. And I'll protect everyone else. That's what families do. The next 3 days were a frenzy of preparation. Rain coordinated security, visible guards to deter attacks, hidden ones to respond to threats. The survivors volunteered to help, their combat skills honed over 2 years of training. Moderate wolf packs and human delegations were quietly informed of the threat and chose to stay anyway. We won't let extremists dictate our future, Counselor Varen said firmly. We stand with you. Iris arrived from the human capital with evidence to present at the festival, documents proving the Covenant's crimes, testimony from defectors, a case for formal prosecution. This is our chance, she said to Elara. To show the world that the extremists are the minority. That most people want peace. And if we're wrong? Elara asked. Then we go down fighting for something worth dying for. The Unity Festival dawned bright and clear. Thousands gathered in the massive field outside the palace, humans and wolves, mixed families, children playing together without understanding how revolutionary their friendships were. Lyra watched from the palace balcony, her eyes wide. So many people, she whispered. All here because of what you represent, Kael said, kneeling beside her. Because you showed them that different doesn't mean dangerous. I didn't do it alone. No, but you were the first. The bridge they needed to believe crossing was possible. The festival began with speeches, performances, shared meals. Elara watched the crowd, searching for threats, but saw mostly joy. Maybe they'd been wrong. Maybe the Covenant wouldn't come. Then the explosion started. 5 simultaneous strikes around the festival's perimeter, smoke bombs and fire, designed to create chaos and panic. The crowd screamed. People ran in all directions. And from the smoke, Covenant fighters emerged masked, armed, moving with lethal precision toward the center of the festival. Toward the stage where Elara stood with Lyra. "Protect the child," Kael roared, shifting into his massive wolf form. Rain and her guards formed a barrier. The survivors drew weapons. Moderate wolves moved to defend their human neighbors. But there were so many attackers. "Mama," Lyra said, her small hand gripping Elara's. "I need to do the thing." "What thing?" "The bridge thing. The big one." Elara's heart stopped. "Lyra, no. There are too many people. Last time you connected with a few hundred, you collapsed for days." "This is what I'm for," Lyra said simply. "This is why I'm the Moontouch child. Not to fight. To help everyone see. You're 3 years old. I'm the bridge." Lyra pulled away, walking toward the edge of the stage. "I have to try, Mama. Or people die." Elara reached for her daughter, but Kael, still in wolf form, blocked her path. Through the bond, she felt his anguish and his certainty. "We have to let her choose." "I hate this," Elara sobbed. "So do I. But she's right. This is who she is." Lyra walked to the center of the stage, her small figure dwarfed by the chaos around her. She closed her eyes and released every wall she'd built to contain her power. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Every person in that field, thousands of them, friend and enemy alike, suddenly felt connected. Not just to Lyra, but to each other. The Covenant fighter about to strike down a wolf child suddenly felt that child's terror and remembered his own daughter, home safe, who played with her toys without fear. The extremist wolf about to attack a human family suddenly experienced their grief. They'd lost their home to wolf raids years ago and had only just started to heal. Victims felt their attackers' fear and indoctrination. Attackers felt their victims' capacity for forgiveness and strength. Throughout the field, weapons clattered to the ground. People fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sudden, crushing weight of shared humanity. A Covenant commander pulled off his mask, tears streaming down his face. What have we done?" "What we thought was right," came a voice. The Covenant's leader, a man named Aldrich, emerged from the smoke, somehow resisting Lyra's power through sheer force of will. "Your child is an abomination," he said, though his voice shook. "She's not natural. She's rewriting people's minds. She's showing them truth," Elara said, moving to stand beside her daughter. "Their own truth. Their own capacity for empathy. It's manipulation." "It's a mirror," Kael growled, shifting back to human form. "She's reflecting what's already there. The question is, what do you see when you look?" Aldrich stared at Lyra, this tiny child who'd brought an army to its knees without violence. I see. His face contorted with the effort of resistance. "I see the end of everything I've fought for." "No," Lyra said, her voice small but clear. "You see the beginning of something better. But you have to choose it." She walked toward him, her small hand outstretched. "Don't touch me." "I won't force you," Lyra promised. "But I'll show you. If you let me." Aldrich stared at her hand. Around them, the entire festival held its breath. Finally, trembling, he took it. The connection blazed between them. Aldrich gasped, feeling not just the peace of the new world, but Lyra's own pain. The weight she carried every day. The burden of being a bridge. The loneliness of being different. The fear that she'd fail everyone who believed in her. She's just a child," he whispered, falling to his knees. "Gods, she's just a baby and we made her carry all of this." "I choose to carry it," Lyra said gently. "Because it's better than letting people hurt each other." Aldrich wept. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought. You thought you were protecting people you loved," Lyra said, with understanding far beyond her years. "But you can protect them better by building than by breaking." She released his hand and stepped back. Around the field, Covenant members were removing their masks, laying down weapons, staring at the people they'd come to kill with new eyes. Not all of them. Some fled, too committed to hatred to face the mirror Lyra held up. But most stayed. And slowly, impossibly, former enemies began to talk. 6 months later, Elara stood in the garden, watching Lyra play with a group of children, some human, some wolf, some like her, hybrids born to mixed families. The moon-touched child wasn't unique anymore. Other impossible children were being born. Other bridges were forming. "How is she?" Kael asked, joining Elara at the garden's edge. "Tired. Happy. Still carrying too much for someone so small." Elara smiled softly. "But isn't that parenthood? Watching your child carry burdens you wish you could take from them." "We could still leave," Kael said. "Find somewhere quiet. Let someone else build the new world." "Could we, though? Could we watch Lyra hide her gift? Watch her deny who she is?" "No, I suppose not." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughter laugh as she showed another hybrid child how to sense emotions through touch. "The prophecy came true," Elara said. "She became the bridge." "Not alone, though. You were right about that. She needed us. Needed everyone who believed in her. She's still so young. Still has so much growing to do. Then we'll be there for all of it. The triumphs and the mistakes. The moments of doubt and the moments of joy." Kael pulled Elara close. "We'll raise her to know she's more than a prophecy. She's our daughter first. And if the world demands more from her, then we'll remind the world that even bridges need support. That even the strongest structures need maintenance and care." Lyra noticed her parents watching and ran over, throwing herself into Elara's arms. "Mama, I taught Finn's sister how to feel happy colors. Wanna see?" "Of course, sweetheart." As Lyra dragged them toward her friends, Elara felt it through the bond, not just her connection to Kael and Lyra, but the faint echoes of connections spreading across the kingdom. Other bonds forming. Other bridges being built. The old world was dying. And something new, something better, was growing in its place. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, resistance, moments of despair. But they had something the old world never did: hope. Hope that different could mean beautiful instead of dangerous. Hope that the future could be better than the past. Hope embodied in a 3-year-old girl with golden eyes and a heart big enough to hold the pain of thousands. Elara had been dying alone in a cave 3 years ago, certain her life didn't matter. Now she was building a new world, raising an impossible daughter, and proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from never falling, but from choosing to rise. "I love you," she whispered to Kael. "I love you too," he replied. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to let me save you. And for being strong enough to save me back." Lyra tugged at their hands. "Come on. You're missing the happy colors." And as they let their daughter pull them into her world of wonder, Elara thought. She was dying alone until she realized she carried the Wolf King's heir. But that wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning. 10 years later, 13-year-old Lyra stood before the Continental Assembly, representatives from every kingdom, both human and wolf, gathered to vote on the first unified governing council. She wasn't speaking. She'd learned that her voice carried more weight when she used it sparingly. Instead, she stood as a symbol. Living proof that unity was possible. Beside her stood her parents, Elara, now known as the Bridge Keeper, who'd written the treaties that made this assembly possible. And Kael, the Wolf King who'd risked everything to believe in change. Around them stood the survivors, now leaders in their own right. Mara ran a forge that trained mixed apprenticeships. Thomas headed an academy where human and wolf children learned together. Iris served as the primary ambassador between human territories and wolf lands. The vote was called. One by one, representatives stood and cast their decision. It wasn't unanimous. Change never was. But it was enough. The unified council passed. As the assembly erupted in celebration and protest in equal measure, Lyra felt the weight of what they'd accomplished, and the weight of what still remained to be done. Tired, her mother asked softly. Always, Lyra admitted. But good tired. Purposeful tired. You know you can rest, right? You don't have to be the bridge every moment of every day. I know. You've told me approximately 1,000 times. Lyra grinned. But I'm not just the bridge anymore. I'm training others. Sharing the load. She gestured to a group of young hybrids, the next generation of bridge builders, learning to use their gifts with wisdom and restraint. I'm proud of you, Kael said, his hand on her shoulder. Not because of what you can do, because of who you are. I learned from the best. Lyra hugged both her parents. You taught me that being different is a gift. That power is responsibility. That love is stronger than fear. We taught you. Well, you and about 1,000 other people. She laughed. Turns out when you can feel everyone's emotions, you get a lot of teachers. Around them, the new world continued its messy, beautiful, imperfect work of being born. It wasn't the world Elara had known when she lay dying in that cave. It wasn't the world Kael had inherited when he became king. It was something better. Something worth fighting for. Something worth dying for. And, most importantly, something worth living for. Did Elara and Kael's impossible love story capture your heart? Did Lyra's journey from prophecy to purpose leave you breathless? Emmy Romance Collections. If you loved She Was Dying Alone until she realized she carried the Wolf King's heir, you're going to obsess over what's coming next. Subscribe to Emmy Romance Collections for to hearts more forbidden love stories that break all the rules. Crown powerful heroines who refuse to be victims. We'll face paranormal romances that will keep you up all night. Sparkle's epic tales of transformation, redemption, and hope. Fire exclusive series that go deep into the characters you can't forget. #### loudspeaker your voice matters. Drop a comment below and tell us. What was your favorite moment in Elara and Kael's story? Would you read a series about Lyra as a teenager? Which survivor story do you want to see explored next? Team Elara is the real hero or Team Kael carried the story? Fight in the comments. Grinning face with smiling eyes. #### red heart show some love. If this story made you feel something, joy, tears, hope, frustration, all of it, please. Red heart like this video. Speech balloon comment your thoughts. We read every single one. Bell subscribe to Emmy Romance Collections. Outbox Dre share with someone who needs an epic love story today. #### rap gift bonus content coming soon. Want to see bonus chapters? Lyra's teenage years? Mara and Rain's untold stories? Let us know in the comments and we'll make it happen. Remember, every great love story starts with someone choosing to be brave. Elara chose to survive. Kael chose to love. Lyra chose to bridge. What will you choose? See you in the next story, romance lovers. Two hearts. Emmy Romance Collections. _, where every ending is just a new beginning. _.